Yes, Florida State fans are better than Florida fans.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports broadcasting network in the country. We are going to be talking about Florida State's offensive style. What do you want? Do you want the current offensive style long term? Something different, a hybrid version? I'm going to give my take, some of the different styles that Florida State's had over the years, and what I think is going to work long term later on in the show. We're also going to talk about the coaching carousel, how it impacts Florida State in a bevy of different ways, financially, socially, obviously the coaches themselves, and what it's going to do with the portal and recruiting. And to lead off, we're going to talk about Florida State fans. They're better than Florida and the SEC. I thought this for a long time, and it's ironic. Just kind of researching what's going on with the coaching carousel, I have come across stuff that some of it I won't even talk about on the show. It's awkward, probably not the most appropriate, but how so many fans, especially in the SEC and Florida, might be the worst, debatable, are just ridiculous. Florida State is not derived of having some idiots as fans. Don't get me wrong. But per capita, this stuff is ridiculous. I would just say this, watching Florida fans eat their own as they try to track everything Lane Kiffin. Okay, I'll admit I laugh at some of it, but they are just killing each other on these message boards, social media, just over who posted something first. Who cares? It's unbelievable how bad they are. I can't get over just how stupid fans can be. And again, every fan base has idiots. Florida State is not in any way, shape, or form perfect. To that end, Florida is just getting worse and worse. So I asked the following question. Florida's got some history, but they've really had two coaches, two, in their history, which is bizarre, that have been good, two. It's State U and it's in the SEC. It doesn't get much easier if you're the State U in Florida. But their fan base acts like they're the end all be all. Why is that? Open-ended question. I've never understood it. Until Spurrier got there in 90, that program was always inconsistent and at best a team that had potential. Why? Florida State wasn't in the SEC. It didn't have the same opportunities, and they got on the scene more than Florida did way before under Bowden, more than a decade before. The late 70s, it was obvious. And in 1980, they were on the cusp of a national title. And yes, for those that are wondering, I am still very sick. My sinuses are not being very friendly with me, but I'm going to make it through today. We're going to power through this. Bottom line, Florida State fans, despite all the ridiculousness of the football program over the last several years being a roller coaster, documented many times here on Locked On Seminoles, do not forget the civility of one Mr. Bobby Bowden and how it kind of transcends the Florida State community as a whole. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's a dividing line with the SEC fans and how they even treat each other at many schools. There's some that aren't that way. Auburn, I live in the Auburn community. It's not that way as much here. But at many schools, it's bad. In Florida, and LSU would be the other, horrific. I'm not quite as familiar with Bama. I haven't spent much time around Tuscaloosa, but it's insane. I would not enjoy covering Florida State if it was this way. And to that end, I want to give just one story. I'm not going to dive into too many again. I don't think very many are appropriate because it involves a lot of fans just yelling at each other for stupid stuff and cussing at each other. But there was a bit of news on Kiffin on a particular board relating to the Gators, and it was already reported by somebody else It happens. So this individual wasn't quote unquote first. And a bevy of people, not just like one, but a bunch, had a bunch of snide comments about a person giving free info. To be clear, this is somebody that is not working for that site, was just a fan. Why are you like that? Even when I have Brandon Olson on doing crossovers with Locked On Seminoles, he hosts Locked On Gators, or if I do a crossover with Locked On the Portal to talk about UF recruiting, he talks about it all the time about how awful Florida fans can be. I feel bad for Brandon. He's a good guy, but he is diehard Gator. I don't know how he deals with that. That would drive me bananas. So thank you to Florida State fans that, by and large, don't take the low road on that. Again, I know there are some idiots in every fan base. That's inevitable. But Florida State fans make it a lot easier for me to do this job. And I think it's a lot easier to kind of show if you're in an administration, like, hey, these are the fans you're going to deal with. I'm not sure Kiffin wants to deal with your fans, to be honest. Ole Miss fans are pretty chill. What he's done for them is great. I think it would be a mistake if he left, but he might. Kiffin has to do what's best for him. So it is what it is. Let's kind of just dive into the coaching carousel from there. This is wild. Some of the speculation with Kiffin, we'll just start with him since I just mentioned him, is that his son Knox, who's a quarterback at one of the local high schools, I think he's at actually Oxford High. Could be wrong. There's a couple of different ones, but whichever one it is, him and his mom were in Gainesville recently looking at some of this stuff. Whether or not that's true or not, and to what extent, I have no idea. I don't believe what anybody says online. But even if it's a circumstance where they look at that, doesn't mean he's going there. You're going to do your due diligence. I get it. So does that mean he's going to Gainesville? No. I bet you Knox has been down to Baton Rouge at some point too, or he will. If you see one, you're probably going to see the other. So how does this impact Florida State? The sooner this gets rolling, the better it is, regardless if Florida State changes coaches. Yes, regardless. And I'll explain why next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making a late push. Right now, FanDuel has an opportunity for new customers. If you bet your first $5 bet and it wins, you can get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please like and subscribe and become an everydayer if you have not already. We are here to talk Florida State football all year round, and hopefully we'll have some more interesting news on the coaching front. And to that end, here's why I said what Kiffin does matters. I talked about this yesterday, and I don't know what his plan is timing-wise, because no matter what he does, he's in an awkward spot talking about Kiffin, because I know he wants to go through the playoff, but the ball does not get rolling across college football until he makes an open-ended public statement. There can't be innuendo. It has to be Lane Kiffin on camera. I am, and fill in the blank. Going to stay at Ole Miss, going to LSU, going to Florida. There's no in between. Because not only does it impact the head coaching carousel, and I'm going to go through my list and opinions on where guys should go in a minute, it impacts every assistant coach in the country. There is such a heated battle for Kiffin. This is weird that it's one guy, that it just screws up everything for every other school. I'll put it to you like this. Virginia Tech, they got their guy. They got James Franklin. It still puts him at odds because the assistant coaches. A head coach is only as good as his two coordinators. Now, Franklin's probably going to bring over a couple of different people from Penn State or guys he's worked with in the past. That's fine. Do you think that he would like to have some of the coaches that Kiffin's either trying to get or that are at UF, but they don't know if they're going to be retained, or fill in the blank at any other school that's made a coaching change? That impacts every school. And yes, Florida State, there could be even assistants that Franklin wants at FSU, or Kiffin might want at FSU going to Florida. Like, all that stuff is plausible. It's such a pain, and I feel bad for Lane. I don't say this very often about guys that are rich, but it's on him to figure it out and to do so very quickly. So now Lane has to figure out, can he get through the rest of the season and the playoff without making an announcement? I say no. So I present the following question. I've thought about that for a while. As much as he's not a guy that's going to dive into that based on what I know of Lane, there's just no way around it. And yes, that means if he's going to leave, he's got to make that decision in December, or it's going to become a major, not a distraction, a major distraction for the Ole Miss football team. I don't know what the UF administration is going to do, because at some point you got to cut bait. But what if they want to go into January and they say to hell with it? We're going all in. If we don't get Lane, we suffer the consequences. Could be the same with LSU too. One of the two's not getting him, at least, possibly both. But what if that happens? These media members that cover these teams, I know some of them, that's the only thing their fans want to talk about. And I mean literally the only thing they want to talk about, because their seasons are disasters by their fans' expectations. Nothing else sells. Nothing else drives money. Nothing else drives the ad revenue. That's how this industry works. Same with podcasts. It's about clicks. That's just reality. So they're going to talk about Lane every single day in almost every single article or video. That's it. So his phone and the SID at Ole Miss and everything else is probably a distraction for Lane. And at some point, his family's going to be like, this sucks. His kids, his daughters, his son, Knox, his ex-wife, who's around. I think they're back together. I'm not sure what it is, but she's in the greater Oxford area, whatever it may be. They're going to be like, you need to make something happen. That's my guess. And to be honest, that would be good for Florida State and every other school, Florida, LSU too. As soon as that is cleared, the tidal wave will happen, and then everything will fall into place. It needs to happen in December. It is terrible for Florida State and everybody else if he goes into January without this. And while it may not be Florida State, somebody's going to get left holding the bag because they lose a coach, whether it's a coordinator, a key assistant who's a great recruiter, not a good, but a great recruiter, because it happens so late. The recruiting process will be done. I get it. But you can't be in mid-January and all of a sudden you lose one of your coaches because they want to go with Lane to Florida or LSU or something, and you've got a junior day the next weekend. These things matter. As somebody who covers recruiting nonstop, I'm telling you, that's a big problem. Could be Florida State, probably not, but somebody. And I guarantee if Lane goes to UF, you can bet your bottom dollar he'd try to steal a top assistant from FSU, like Tim Harris Jr. or somebody like that has ties to South Florida who can coach and recruit. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it'd be better no matter what Lane decides to do if he does it in December. And to that end, these are just my opinions on the next group here for the coaching stuff. Take it for what it's worth, but this is what I think should happen. Will it? No, this is what I think would be best for them, but we'll see. Eli Drinkwitz, head coach at Missouri. He's a bit of an awkward guy publicly. Haven't heard the greatest things about him in terms of dealing with people on the sidelines. There's one story I'll leave out, but he can coach. Florida and a bunch of other schools are after him. But he had a public statement that was a non-statement, not good, at a recent press conference. He says, I won't comment on message boards, blah, 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 basically what everybody else is saying. Either come out and say, I'm staying at Missouri, or shut your pie hole. This is the same for every coach. I say this every year in some way, shape, or form. Saying it now. No more of this in between. Yes, I'm 100% staying. Under no circumstance am I leaving. Or shut your pie hole. He's not cutting it off. He's just saying, I won't comment on what people say on message boards. Who cares? But he's better off to stay at Missouri. Florida, if it bothers him that people are commenting now on message boards, what did I lead the show with? Talking about how UF fans eat their own. UF is allegedly interested in Eli. And as a coach, I get it. But if fans bother him now and he's coaching at Missouri, what do you think would happen if he went to Florida? Yeah, good luck. He would be miserable. And that's a whole different level. Be careful for what one asks. All right, John Summerall, head coach at Tulane. He's got ties to Kentucky, played there. Tulane, obviously, because he's there now, and Troy, school in the state of Alabama. So he's got Southern roots in different ways. He was born in Texarkana, I believe. So all over the SEC footprint. I would imagine that Auburn's going to get him based on all the intel. But my question is he kind of pulling the Lane card? Like, is he trying to get Tulane, A, into the playoff, and B, coach them while taking the Auburn job? I'm going to go ahead and say it now. And I know this isn't very friendly, but it's just true. I'm always honest. People don't like it. That's fine, but I'm going to let it rip. Let's say you are fortunate enough to get Tulane in the playoff, and I don't think they're going to be the team that goes, but whatever. Let's just say you do. What are your odds of advancing? 1 in 20? You're not going anywhere. If you want the Auburn job or another, and it is offered to you, take it. Don't play the ego card. We can do it. You're not going anywhere with Tulane's roster. And maybe he's thinking that way and he hasn't been offered the job. I don't know. But he's a good coach. And I've spoken to many people who have been around him. I don't know John, never met him. Don't wait. Take the job. He'd fit in fine at Auburn. He's coached at Troy. That's only a couple hours away from Auburn. He would do just fine there. Definitely better than the last head coach. So the question is, will he be offered that one or somebody else? I don't know. But I think that Summerall will make somebody a very good coach. Don't try to play the card, though, where I want to take the SEC job after the playoff. No. You have to come now. Yes, that means bypass the playoff. It's because you're a G6 school, and that sounds arrogant, but it's just true. Auburn fans are not going to accept that. I can tell you that now, nor should they. You've got to recruit and retain your roster 24/7 from the moment you say yes. That's just the way that goes. All right. This is a guy I don't think a lot of people know much about, and I'm just learning about him myself. Bob Chesney. He's at James Madison. He took over, ironically, for Cignetti, who's now at Indiana. He was the coach at James Madison. Well, since Bob came in, and despite Cignetti taking 13 of his players with him from James Madison to IU, Chesney's done pretty good. He's 18-5 since taking over there. Now there's momentum for him. He came up through the ranks like FCS and all that. He's basically the same path as Cignetti. Good for him. I think it's a great story. I have no idea what his background is. I just started looking into him this morning. I heard about him for a while, but I'm like, okay, this is the first true mid-major job that I find interesting. He's had some talent where I can really grade him. It's still hard, but would it shock me if he ended up at a job like Auburn? No, nothing would shock me in today's world. Nothing. Again, if Kiffin decides to stay at Ole Miss, and I have no idea if he will, somebody's going to take a job like this, like Florida. They're going to end up with a G6. Somebody's going to get a G6 coach. It's coming. I don't know who it's going to be. And I know those fans at those places will be very angry, but it's coming for somebody. It's just a matter of who, not if. With that being said, that's a guy that we need to learn more about. Obviously, that's a school in the state of Virginia. I can't tell you if he's going to be a fit at all these different places, but he's gaining some steam behind closed doors. Alex Golish, this is one I bring up intentionally because if Florida State's job opens up, I think he would certainly be a possibility. He's at USF. He coached at UCF, then went up to Tennessee with Josh Heupel, tight end / offensive coordinator. He understands fast break offense. He understands quarterbacks from different perspectives, throwing around, guys that are mobile, more pocket. He's seen a little bit of everything. With that, do we think he could be at Florida State? Possibly. But what about Florida? Heck, he took USF to Florida this year and won in the swamp. By the way, that's hilarious. Wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being the head coach at Auburn. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the next head coach at NC State. I'm pretty sure Dave Doran's done. LSU, maybe. I doubt it. I think that'd be more likely to be Summerall. But there's a lot of possibilities. He's a good coach. Matt Campbell, I have not heard as much about here lately. I'm a little surprised. There's been a lot of discussion about Penn State, them trying to get certain guys. I thought he would be a pretty big candidate for the Nittany Lions because he's from Ohio, kind of a Big Ten region guy. Haven't heard as much, though. Ryan Silverfield, Memphis. Where's he going to go? There's been rumors about him for a while. He's a pretty good coach. He's the guy that replaced Norvell, if I remember correctly. But is he ready for that next step? I don't know. A lot of people want to kind of slide him into SEC jobs. It's not that easy, but he has done a pretty good job there. Brian Hartline, this is one that's been hot and heavy with Penn State for a while. He's the offense coordinator / receiver coach and recruiting extraordinaire, especially at receiver at Ohio State. He's famous for all the receivers they've had the last half dozen or so years. I have no idea if he's ready. Nice guy. I've met him once. But that would be an interesting hire. I know even some people here on Locked On Seminoles, like on the YouTube page, his name gets brought up a lot. He would kill it in recruiting. Like personality and all that. Like I get it after meeting him. I get it. That one is very, very, very intriguing. Will Stein, offense coordinator at Oregon. No idea where it's going to be, but I will be surprised if he's not offered some jobs after this year. Maybe he doesn't want to leave. I don't know, Will. He's from the state of Texas originally, but man, that guy's a good coach. He's pretty young. And I can tell you from Lanning's style, he's not hiring coaches that can't recruit. So I would assume Will's pretty good at that. Last guy, and he's kind of an albatross for me because I don't have any ties to him to give a whole lot of info. That's Jeff Traylor at UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio. He's had success there. They play some power football mixed in with some mobile quarterbacks. They throw it around. Pretty interesting. By the way, they got one of the best running backs in the country. I mean, he's not that far from Jeremiah Love. He's legit. The question is he ready to move on, and where would it be? He's a Texas guy. Is there a spot? LSU's not going to hire him, so where would it be? Maybe Oklahoma State? That's an opening. I don't know, but I think that's a really interesting situation. When we come back, I want to talk about Florida State's, shall we say, offensive identity. Regardless if there's a coaching change or not, should Florida State make at least some kind of switch moving forward? And what do you prefer as a Florida State fan? That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Florida State's offensive identity right now is up-tempo, mobile quarterback, going to play inside zone, going to throw the ball over the top. That's Gus Malzahn to a T. Having stated that, is that what you as a Florida State fan wants? I'm going to give my take on Malzahn's offense and also, for lack of a better term, discuss what I think is best for Florida State long term. So for those that don't know, I covered Gus when he was at UCF. Great guy. And the people around Tim Harris and all the people they brought over from UCF, they're good people. That offense has one fatal flaw, and it's pretty common in college football. The quarterback being mobile is more likely to take hits. I challenge anybody to go through and find a season, whether it was UCF, wherever, where the quarterback for Gus didn't either A, miss like full game or was playing pretty banged up fairly early in the season. It's just nature of the beast. That's why I'm not a huge fan of it moving forward. And it's probably why the following is true. I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but if not, here it is. There's a quarterback at a major program right now. Major program. It's a kid that I've brought up on this show before that is a really good quarterback that his school is bold-faced lying about his injury status. 1,000,000%. Why? They don't want other teams taking shots at him. He's hidden it fairly well. But when I was told about it, and I went back, kind of looked, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's what he's doing or not doing to try to hide it that has led to that. He's running less. But anyway, Tommy wasn't running as much there for a while either. Were they given the full answer to what was wrong with him? No. No team does, but you can tell by his play, they were not running him as much. And even though Tommy is an ultra competitor, just like I told everybody, because I covered him in high school before he went to UCF, he wasn't going out taking as many hits. But he's been drilled a few times this year beyond that terrible, pathetic hit in the Stanford game. That was so cheap. It's part of it because he puts himself at risk. He plays hard. While I commend it, you just can't have your quarterback taking those hits. There's just no shortcut. You got to go down, even if it means you got to punt. Tommy doesn't think that way. He can't. That's not his mentality. Part of the reason he fits Gus Malzahn's offense. But that's also why I say the following. I've got several different offensive styles, Florida State history and otherwise, written down. And I'm going to finish up over the next couple minutes and just throw these out. And if you want to comment on them in the YouTube, fire away. But the Florida State fast break offense that Charlie Ward ran, 92 and 93, I think that's the best for Florida State, mixed with more power run. The one thing those teams didn't have was a great offensive line. They were average up front. They weren't great. They'd have had a dominant offensive line. They'd have won about 5 national titles from 88 to 96, somewhere in through there. Their offensive line was always their weakness. They got to recruit offensive line better. Then they didn't. Ironic, but they need to recruit it better now too. They're getting there, but they got to start getting 5-star guys up front to do what I'm talking about. Run the fast break, but with more power football. It's not the style, it's the play calls. The play calls are predicated by the players you have. I think they should run pretty much what they do now in terms of a spread offense, but the quarterback's just not taking the hits. Just can't happen. Nothing against Gus personally, but I think that offense just leaves you out to dry with the injury bug far too often. To that end, I have no idea what fans will say to this, but I think a lot of fans enjoy seeing quarterbacks around because it's exciting. That I agree with. It can be exciting and you can throw the ball away or you can slide, though. Most of the guys that take off, they at least once or twice a game, they just put themselves in a spot where it is touch and go. You cannot take especially upper body shots because it screws up your shoulders and all that stuff. Just can't do it. So I say no to that. There are 3 offenses, possibly 4, depending on how you want to grade it, that I think Florida State could kind of use as examples. Take it for what it's worth, but here's some of the strengths and the teams that I think are interesting. Tennessee, they have a great run game. But if you followed them in any way, shape, or form, you know their wide receiver splits are insane. It doesn't even look real. It's almost like a comic strip. Their outside receiver is practically on the sideline. You have to commit. They make their quarterback basically just have the easiest read in the world. If you're blitzing, like from the slot, that guy's going a mile because the inside guy can be outside quite a bit too. There are a few exceptions, but you could use some of that. You don't have to be Tennessee's offense. But why more teams don't use this at least part of the time, if you've got a good line, and Tennessee does, they've had some good running backs too. If Florida State, with their running back room, which is good, use this a little bit, whether it's Gus's scheme or anything else, one guy misses, it's off to the races because those outside DBs, they're too far to the perimeter. They're not going to be able to do anything against inside runs. There's no way. Tennessee's running backs every year are great. But how many of them are NFL guys? Like true, no doubt about it, NFL guys. It's interesting. I think they should use at least a little bit of what Tennessee does. Notre Dame, I'll just say it again because I talked about it a minute ago. Florida State's just got to recruit O-linemen better. Notre Dame recruits O-linemen better than any school in the country, and it's why they're in the position they're in. Their offense is pretty generic with the run game. A little bit of GT and variations of zone, and I get it. They got Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, but Florida State's running back room is really good too. It's just about recruiting. No ifs, no ands, no buts. You know how many transfer linemen Notre Dame has, offensive linemen? 0. Not one on their offensive line depth chart. Not one in their offensive line room. 0. That is how it's done. So they run power football first. They want to be a line of scrimmage team. With the way Florida State naturally recruits running back, tight end, wide receiver, because there's so many in the South, if they just focus on O-line recruiting, the endless possibilities, it's just incredible. Just want to throw that out. Ole Miss, it's a combination of, in my opinion, of Tennessee and Notre Dame. They've recruited O-line a little bit better, and they mix in a little bit of portal, but they don't put quite as much on the quarterback to run, although he's mobile, as say Florida State. Trinidad Chambliss fits the offense. He could play at Florida State schematically, but he runs less. In big moments, can he take off? Sure. Would I want to go as far as Lane does with the quarterback running? Probably not. But in that vein, a little bit less than what is necessary for Florida State's offense to work, I get it. Finally, Texas A&M, just to throw them in there, and to be clear, give Marcel Reed credit. He's not great at post-snap reads. Most quarterbacks aren't. But he takes off and ad-libs because he is a freak athlete. He's like Tommy. He doesn't get hit very much. He's got a great sense laterally where everybody's at. But he throws the ball all over the field, short, intermediate, laterally, vertically, down the middle, whatever. He's trying to take shots. It reminds me a little bit of what Ward did at Florida State. I'm okay with it, but they're not trying to run quarterback lead with it. Take off if it's 3rd and 7. Go get us 8 yards and move the sticks. We want the athleticism, but it's not the focus. You could say A&M's offense might be the best long-term for the Noles. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate it. Like and subscribe. We will see you again soon.